Now, so by default, you would have this one, the grid view, when you start a new table. So let me show you. Let's say we start a new table. I went here in the top right corner. You see where it says this little plus sign. So I'm just going to say create empty table. And then we'll say test name. So that will be the name of the fabric. Let's say, right? And then I want to put here a picture of that fabric, right? I'm going to change the order of the notes and the attachments because I want the picture to come up immediately after the name. It's just easier for me to manage it that way. But you can change it around or leave it as it is, doesn't matter. So let's see. I'm just going to click on it. I'm holding my mouse button down and then I drag it over here. And now we switched. Now the column is called a field in Airtable. It's basically a column like a column in Excel, right? But in Airtable, it's called a field. So by default, the options that they give you are name, attachments, notes, and status. And then here is a plus sign. And then you can create all kinds of different fields, whatever you want. So the way you would set it up for fabrics is you would put in the name, and again I'm going to give you a template so you can use the template, or you can just create your own from scratch, or you can use what I'm teaching you right now to customize the template that I'll give you. So let's say you put here the name of the fabric. For right now I'm just going to put in a number. I have a fabric swatch in front of me. So when you're putting in data for the first time for your fabric collection, you want to put in the name, and you can create your own name, or you can use the SKU number like how I showed you. I just used the SKU number from the website from where I bought the fabric. So in this case, I have a swatch in front of me and it's called 1081. So that's the number that I'm going to use. And this was from Fabrics and Fabrics. And so if I go and get that name, this number here, copy it, put it on the website here in the search, it comes up with the actual fabric that I wanted, right? This is the one that I have physically in front of me right now. So I'm just going to click on the picture, and instead of taking a screenshot, because that will create a huge file, and that way you will blow through your free storage limit on Airtable very quickly. So don't do a screenshot. Instead, what you want to do is right click, save image as. We're going to save it here on the desktop for now. And then have a look. We go to the desktop. Here's this image. It's 497 kilobytes. So it's not bad, right? Now, if I wanted to take a screenshot of this, have a look at the size there. I go to my screenshots. We'll load it here in a second. This, if I did it as a screenshot, it's 3.5 megabytes. So it's 9 times as big, right? So it's a much larger file size than if you do it as a save as. So make sure that you always do it as a save as. And then you will get either a JPEG usually or a WEBP, a web page format. And either one works fine. And so then we want to compress it even more. So you're going to go to this website called tinypng.com. This one, tinypng.com. It's a nice little friendly little panda here. And what this does, this allows you to upload images, and then it compresses it for you, and you can download it back to your computer for free. It lets you do 20 at a time, up to 5 megabytes per picture. So usually our downloaded pictures are much smaller than that anyway, so that's not a problem. And then once you're through with 20, you can just refresh the page and it will let you do another 20. So you don't need to do the paid option on this either. So you just go to where we have the saved image, upload it. You see it's compressing. And then check this out. From 497, it went down to 257. So it compressed it by 48%. And then previously I just did an image, so it's showing that from 3.6 megabyte, it went down to 1.4 megabytes. That was a different image that I was working on earlier. And you see that one was compressed by 59% as well. So really, really easy to do. It takes a second. And then you download it. You put it on your desktop or wherever you want to put it. And then we go back to our table here, and in the attachments folder, you press on this little plus sign, select your file, and then you just navigate there on your computer. And you know that this is the smaller one because usually it will save it as a copy or as a number 1 depending on your computer. But you can also just check, because you see it shows 258 kilobytes versus the other one. The original one was 497. So you want to do the one that was the smaller size. Click upload, or open rather, and then upload. And there it is. So that's our first column, is the name. The second one is the attachment. Now the third one, if we want to take a peek here, how we, let's go back to the fabrics, to the grid view. I'll click views on the left, grid view. So you see we have preview, that's the attachment, you can rename it. And then the next one would be composition and type. And that will let you search by figuring out what kind of composition that fabric has, right? So in this case, this is a cotton, I think. Let me just have a look here in the description. Yes, it's a cotton. So we're just going to put here cotton. And for this, to make it so that it has these options, like here you see if I wanted to add something new, it gives me a bunch of options already. To have this, we need to set up this column, and the column is called a field in Airtable. We need to set it up as a multiple select. So what we're going to do is here, we rename this one to composition and type, but you can rename it whatever you want. It's just something that makes sense for me. And then instead of long text, because long text literally means that you can put in a long piece of text, instead of that, we're going to choose multiple select. And so that will give you the options where you can put in things, and then you can click on multiples. So as an example, here we'll put cotton as our first option. And then let's just pretend that this was not only cotton, it was also a cotton and linen blend, right? So I'm just going to type linen, right? So let's say this is a cotton linen blend, so I'm going to use both options. That's what multiple select does. It lets you have multiple options within the same field. And a field is just this little cell, this little one cell like in Excel, right? And then now if I were to go to my next row, my next record, let's say if I wanted to do something else, and that was also a cotton, I don't have to type it anymore because it's been set up for this column. So all I have to do is just put the C in and then click on the cotton, and there it is. And let's say it's also a cotton linen blend. I can just put in linen like that just by clicking on it. And then let's say this also was a mix of silk, right? So I'm just gonna add that in here as a new option, create new option as silk. And there it is. And so now it has all these different options because I customized this field type, this column, onto a multiple select. So again, the way to do that is you click on the arrow here and click customize field type and choose multiple select, and that will let you make this so that you can just pick anything. And then also you can change the colors if you want. Like you can just click on this little dotted thing here, or rather the circle here, and then pick whatever color you want for it. If I want to make it pink, there it is. And you can even add additional colors besides what they have here, but you just need to upgrade for that for the paid plan. I just use the free plan, so I pick whichever, it doesn't matter. Okay, so let's go back to our first record. And the record is a horizontal row in Airtable. Now on the free plan, Airtable lets you have 1,200 records. So in one base. So remember how I showed you that this sewing and fashion design, this is one base. My wardrobe one is another one. The pattern collection, this is a separate one from what I'm showing you today, but it doesn't matter. That's a whole separate base. Everything that you want to know that I showed you in the Facebook post is inside this space, the sewing and fashion design one, okay? And so inside this one, I can have 1,200 records. That means that you see, like it starts here by one on the left-hand side. You see where my mouse is right now? It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It just automatically numbers them. And so it goes as many, like to as many numbers, as many inputs you put in there, right? So this is like 200 and something fabrics. And then the same for my patterns, it's like 800 or close to 800. If I go to my grid view, you can see that it's like a lot. Okay, so we don't have to worry about this part of the numbering because it will do that automatically. But you do want to have your unique name because it will help you search and make it searchable for you the way you need it. And so my recommendation is always to use the SKU number, or if you're buying something in a physical store, then you can just take the number from the bolt, take a picture of it when you buy the fabric, or otherwise come up with your own name, and maybe you will say linen 1, and then you will know that that's your linen 1, and then you will put up your image that you took with your phone of that particular fabric. Okay, I'm just gonna delete this for now. So our name is our first one. The image, we can rename this one, and all I did was double click it, customize field type, and then instead of attachments we can call it preview, right? Because basically that's what it is, a preview. And we can see it here. If I go back to my main actual fabric collection, you see I named it preview there. So that's what we are building here through this example, preview. Okay, composition and type, we went through that. The next column, the next field is gonna be source. Now this, you don't have to put this in, you don't have to put any of them in. You can just put like literally the color, I think, is the most useful one, and the quantity and the composition and type. I do put a lot more information, and I'll walk you through what other type of information it is, because sometimes that's how we'll search for something. So with the next one, which is the source, it means where it came from, where did I buy it. So like here, for example, in my fabric one, you can see that if I click on it, the options are fabrics and fabrics, because that's the store that I buy stuff from often. I also buy things from Mood, and then I have another general one for Europe because I used to live in Europe, and so the fabrics that I've bought there, I don't remember exactly which stores and where, so I just put Europe because I bought it somewhere in Europe, right? But here you could put, for example, Joann's or Amazon or Vogue Fabrics, or wherever you're buying your fabrics. You could just put that as an option there, and then that way it will allow you to search for it. So if you know that, when I went to Atlanta and I bought something at a store there, I can search for, where is my Atlanta fabrics, right? Because that will help you find things quicker if you don't know exactly what type it was or what color it was, but you know that you bought some really cool stuff there. Putting in the source, like where you actually got it from, will help you when you go to search. So let's just put here the same way as we did here, source. You see the field name here says source, so that's what we do here. So we click customize field, right? And then change the name to source. And then again, so this will be actually a single select. It's very similar to the multiple select that we did for composition and type, where it allows you to have multiple options because some fabrics are blends, of course. So we want to have multiple words that we can pick at the same time. But here you will have bought it in one place. So it's one store or one city, right? So that's why we actually want to put single select. And then here I have some already pre-filled because this is how I set up my Airtable, but for you, this might be empty initially. So that's okay. You'll just put an option. So let's say we put Joann's, and then hit enter or hit return, right? The next one, let's say, will be Mood. The next one might be, I don't know where you buy fabrics, like Amazon, right? Or what is it called? Fabric.com. Oops. Which is an Amazon store anyway. So this way you can create your options. You click save, and you don't have to create all of them up front. You can just add them as you go. So if you're down 10 records and then you remember, oh yeah, I also bought something from here, you can add the additional source at that time. You don't have to come up with all of it at once. So in this case, I bought this one from Fabrics and Fabrics, the first one. So it's not here in my options. So I can just type it, Fabrics and Fabrics, and then create a new option with that. And then there was also a little green dot. It's just because I pressed enter and I didn't type anything, so we can delete that. And the way to do that is we go back to customize field type. You see all the actual options except for this empty one. Either I give it a name now, let's say Vogue Fabrics, or if I don't have another source, like right now I hit enter again automatically and it's just an empty one, I just click the X here and it will make that go away, and then click save. Okay, so this one was not from Vogue Fabrics, it's actually from Fabrics and Fabrics. So we do that. The next one, let's say we bought at Joann's. Okay, so we have our name, our preview image. I showed you how to compress the image and how to upload it, your composition and type, your source, and then the next one, let's go back to our original stash to see the link to buy. So that's really easy. Oops, we're gonna go here, and when you go to add a column, you say add field. So a column is called a field. You click plus, and then you scroll down until you get to URL, and then you'll say link to buy. Again, you don't have to put this, especially if you're buying something in a physical store, not online. Then of course you're not going to have a link. But if you bought something online, I found that it's really nice and handy to have the link, because sometimes you want to buy more of that fabric, and instead of having to copy and paste this number and then go to that manually typing in that website's name, you can just click on the link. So I'm just going to go back here and then copy this link and put it over to my link to buy. So there it is. And you don't see the full thing. If you were to drag it out, you can see, but you don't have to. It doesn't matter. Now, the next one that we want to add, let's have a look, is whether it's reorderable or not. So we just see an R here. I've originally named this field reorderable question mark, but I know what that means, so I just compressed the space here so I can see more information on my screen. But basically it means reorderable or not. So what that is some online stores will let you will restock the same exact thing, especially if it's a basic fabric, like, you know, some kind of cotton or linen or denim or something, or silk. Even if it's not a particular print, often they will restock it even after they sold out, but some other ones don't. So that's why it's nice to have. And then in this case, we will do the type of this field. We will make it a single select, because it will be either a yes or a no, right? So reorderable, yes, or reorderable, no. And in this case, I actually changed the color for the yes to a green and the no to a pink, reddish, right? Create field. So this way, this one I know is not going to be reorderable because Fabrics never restocks anything. If it was something from Mood, often they do restock stuff. So in that case, you would put yes for reorderable, right? If it's a reorderable one. But in this case, it's going to be a no. Let me just find something here. So these are basics. That's perfect. Like this is going to be reorderable for sure, because this is just a basic pleat. And if you go here, you see it says reorderable, yes. So you can always look at if it says the information on the website, whether or not they're going to restock it. And then based on that, you can fill out your information here. And then that way, for example, if you're searching for something that you've used in the past for a project and you want to go ahead and find that fabric and potentially order some more, you can also narrow down your search when you're using this filter thing here. You can also make it so that the reorderable question is going to have to be yes. So it only shows you fabrics that are reorderable, right? Look how short the list got all of a sudden. It's all Mood because everything else is not reorderable in my collection, but yours might be different. So this is a very, very useful thing to filter by too. Okay, the next one is the color. So this you'll have guessed already probably. It's just, we'll just put a multiple select here. And then you will start typing in all the colors that you usually do, right? Blue, pink, white, black, green, whatever that you typically buy. And then I like to also put in words that are a little bit more specific to that shade of color, because that way I know that that's how I'm going to search for it. So I might put in purple for something, but I could also put in lilac and periwinkle. Or for the green, I might put in mint green, because I know that when I'm going to be using this as a search tool, I'm going to probably think about a fabric that I know I bought, and I'm going to put in, where's that mint green fabric that I have, right? So now I can suddenly have all these options and then just choose and filter by my mint green. But when I add the information about this particular fabric, I'm also going to put in green, even though it's well, this one isn't, but like as an example, it would be technically a mint green, but it also belongs to the green family. So the more descriptors you have, the better your search will work when you're searching through the filtering option. Okay, so in this case, let me delete these, and I'm just going to put in the actual colors. And so how can I do that? Well, I can look at the physical swatch in front of me, which you guys can't see, but I can see it in my hand right now. Or I just go to the website, and then it literally says here pink, black, gray. So that's perfectly good for me. I'm going to put pink, black, gray, and probably lilac, because I would think of this color as a lilac as well. So I'm just going to put pink. There it is. I just typed the P and already the pink comes up because we typed it in before. Black, there it is. Gray, that hasn't come up yet because, or doesn't come up because we haven't input it yet. So I'll put it here, type it now, and create that new option. And I'm going to put in lilac as well, which we already have here. Perfect. Look at that. Okay, next, what do we want to put besides the color? Type. So for this one, I usually put what kind of type is it? Woven or knit. Those are really important because that can influence whether or not you can use a particular fabric for a particular pattern. And in addition to that, I put in any kind of descriptor that will help me remember. Like, for example, it's a sheer fabric, or it's crinkled, or it's a high sheen fabric like a silk charmeuse, or anything that polka dot, floral, brocade, anything like that, that will help you describe that fabric, right? So first of all, whether it's a woven or a knit, and then anything else that will help you quickly find it when you're searching for it. So I'm going to go to customize field type just to show you guys here. You see like all of these options, and you would customize it for your own self. I'm going to put these into the template that I created for you, but you can also add your own stuff. So like it might be a knit, woven, lace, stretch, sheer, crinkled, pleated, eyelet, panel. So, if it's not continuous print, but it's in panels, it might be a muslin fabric, lining, lightweight muslin, double knit, guy pearl lace, polka dot, Swiss dot, floral, watercolor, like you can read it. So there are just so many different things that can describe fabrics, and you want to have as many options as possible within your collection. So don't just put in 100 just because. If you never buy pleated fabrics, then don't put in pleats, right? But if you like it, and if you have some in your collection, then definitely put it in there, because that will help you make your search function in your own stash much more usable. And then I also like the different types of prints. I like to describe them. So like, let's say it has stars on it, or it's a ditse print. Like, let's just say I'm going to get out of this and show you as an example. If I go to my gallery view, because we can search inside this one too, but if we want to see the pictures properly, it's easier to see it in the gallery view. So I'm just going to go here and go to filter, and then composition and not composition and type, sorry, just a type. Where is it? After the color, type. And then it has the option has any of, has all of, is exactly, has none of, it's empty, it's not empty. Like, it has just all the different options of how you can filter for that particular field. And then here are all our options within the type field. So let's say I want to find all the polka dots. There they are. Okay. And now I can easily pick out what I wanted, right? But I could also look for, let's say, a floral. So I'm going to undo the polka dot and just slide the green to gray back. Now it shows everything that I have. And then I'll go to floral, and I can either scroll for it or I can just start typing the word floral here and it will come up with it. And now it shows all the florals. And if I had, let's say, a lot, this is not that many, right? But if I had a lot of florals, then I could have also narrowed down the search by the color, for example, or the composition of the fabric or the quantity of the fabric. So when you're using it for search, again, you will want to use the gallery view because it's just easier to find things that way. But for data input, you will want to do it through the grid view. Again, it will be just easier. Okay, the next column, the next field is what is it suitable for. So this is something that, for example, Mood will tell you, right? So it will say here, I think I have to refresh this page. Like here it says you can create midi skirts, belted dresses, mock neck blouses. It just gives you some ideas of what this fabric is suitable for. Now, if you know that you will never ever create a mock neck blouse, then don't put that there because it's not going to be useful. But you would put in here suitable for whatever you think that you could possibly make out of this fabric, right? So we're going to add suitable for as a new field. If I can type. And then here we will, customize field type, and it automatically, by default, it gives you single line text, but instead what we want to have is multiple select. So again, we will have options because sometimes things are good for multiple things, right? So let's say this is good for skirts, dresses, blouses, right? And pants. Now, some fabrics will be only good for one or two things. Some fabrics will be good for like 5 different things. So you'll want to have these options here, and then you will know immediately. And in the future, also, it will give you ideas of what you could possibly make from it. Because when you bought it and you pre-washed it, you felt the weight of this fabric. So it gave you a good idea of what you could possibly use it for, as well as in some websites, like for example with Mood, it actually tells you. On Fabrics and Fabrics, it doesn't say anything like that, so you would just have to see the fabric yourself in your hands and put in this information based on what you think it will be suitable for. Now the next column, let's have a look, is gonna be the length. It's the lining. So this is just a yes or no question. Is this lining fabric or not? So this is how I'm using it. You could also use this question as a, does this require lining or not? So this particular thing, let's say, is sheer, and for sure you will need to line it, right? I don't use it in that sense because that will very much depend on the fabric or on the pattern that I'm using. Because something maybe I want to line it if I'm using it as a skirt or like the bottom part of a dress. But if I'm using it as the top part of a dress or as a blouse or as a top, maybe I don't want to line it. So I'm not using this row in the sense of whether or not this particular fabric requires lining. Instead, the way I'm using is this lining fabric the fabric itself or not, right? And so the options here are no, because usually they're not lining fabrics, most of the fabrics that we buy, or yes, or both. So in some cases, some fabrics are meant to be fashion fabrics, but you could potentially use it for lining. And again, like we could basically use just about any slippery fabric as lining, right? But we don't want to always put in both, only if you can really see yourself potentially using that as lining at some point in the future. So then you might put in both, okay? So let's go back to our new field here in lining. And so it's gonna be, when you customize the field type, it's gonna be a multiple select, and we're gonna say no, we're gonna say yes, and both. And so that will give us the options to input any of this data here. So in this case, this is not lining fabric, so we're gonna say no. Okay, let's see what's next. Quantity. This is really important because this will save you time instead of having to look through your entire stash and then unfold the fabrics that you want to pick and see if you have enough for a particular pattern. You can just look it up real quickly here. And so the way I've set it up is I put in the width and the quantity, the length in meters. Now you can use inches, you can use yards, whatever you want. The only thing that you have to keep in mind is this particular field type is in decimals. Just like how Excel or any kind of spreadsheet software works in decimals, it's not going to work in fractions. So if you want to put like 2 3/8 of a yard or something like that, like the 3/8 kind of thing is not going to work, right? So you would want to, or a quarter yard or something, you would put like 0.25 instead of 1/4. Okay, so you want to, in your head, you want to convert it into decimals, but you can use the type of measurement as yards instead of meters. You don't have to do meters. It's just easier for me, so that's why I use meters. So the width of the fabric is basically the width of the bolt. So here we go back to the first one that we put in the sample here, this one, right? So I'm just clicking my little arrows here on the computer and scroll here, put in a new field, which is going to be the width. And now we want to choose the option number. And you see, this is what I was talking about. It has integer, which is, I don't know what that is, like some math thing. You want to use the decimal part. And the precision, you can do 1.0 or 1.00 or more. I do this one because this way it will let me go precisely to the centimeter instead of to the 10 centimeter, which is about 3.5 to 4 inches, right? So if you have the double digits here, then it will let you go as detailed as a 1/2 inch, roughly, which is 1 centimeter, 1.00. Okay. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to look here. And it says the width is 53 inches. Now I'm just going to go to my handy dandy little calculator because I can't do math in my head. 53, if you use inches for your input, you just put in 53. If you use centimeter, then you're just going to multiply it. And it's 134.62. Now I'm just going to put 135 because I know that the fabrics are they come in standard width. So 135 is close enough for this. But for the lengths, we can be more accurate. So for the width, we put in 135. And then our next one will be the length, which is the quantity in meters, right? Now, for yards, you might put in quantity in yards. It doesn't matter, right? Now, I hit enter a little too prematurely, and so it did single line select by default. But I can change that, and I'm just going to go to number. Where's the number? Here. And then decimal and with the double, with the 2 digits after the decimal point. And then for the allow negative numbers, we can just ignore that because we're not going to have negative stash, right? And then click save. And so let's say I had 2 yards of fabric. So I'm just going to put in the number 2. Now watch this. I hit my return key or enter key and it puts 2.00. So that means if I had, let's say, 2.25 yards, I would put in 2.25. And there it is. And now what it's going to do is it's going to allow me to search for something. Let's say I need 2 yards of something for a pattern. I can put in this as my search criteria that it has to have at least 2 yards. It will pull that information from here. So anything that is 2 or above, it will do that. And then the width, I don't use it as much for search, but it's nice to have it here as information because again, when you're looking at your fabric, it's typically going to give you the yardage information for different amounts of quantity based on the width of the fabric. So you can go from there instead of again having to unfold your fabric and measure the width and all of that to see if it's enough. You can immediately see it here, and you know that let's say this is wider than what the pattern requires, that's great, or if it's equal, it's great. If it's less, then lengthwise you're going to need a little bit more than what it says on the envelope, right? So that just makes sense. All right, now quantity notes. This I found is really important. Again, most of the time it's empty. I'm just going to close this here so we don't have this distraction with the downloads on the bottom. So the quantity field, generally this column is going to be empty, but sometimes it's not empty. So this one, it shows like it's 5 meters, but it's really 2 meters plus 3 meters plus another 95 centimeter by 25. That's just a piece of scrap, right? So I know that if I'm trying to make something and it requires more than 3 meters to be in one piece, which sometimes it could be, right? Usually not, but sometimes it could be, then this is not going to be enough. Even though it shows 5 here, it's in 2 pieces. So then I would have to have a look at it and see if this works. So this will actually work in your search too, because when you're searching for something, I'm going to go to my gallery view here on the left-hand side, and you go filter by, we're not going to filter by type this time. We're just going to filter by quantity. So let's see. Quantity in meters, right? So let's say it needs to be at least 3 meters. Okay. And then an additional condition, I can put the quantity notes, this one, and I can say that this needs to be empty. So that means it will only pull up fabrics that are 3 meters or more, and it's not in 2 pieces or 3 pieces or scraps or something, right? Because that field is empty, that the whole column. If I allow for it, like it's not empty, or sorry, not empty, right? Then it shows me all of them. And to give you an example, so this one, I know I have a lot of this fabric, but it's all in pieces. So you see, like I have 13.8 meters of this plus a 90 centimeter piece. So basically like almost 15 meters of this fabric, right? So the 14.8 is my total, and then the notes are here because I allowed with my filtering to look for something where the quantity notes field is not empty. Well, right here, I got this Python fabric. Let's have a look at the quantity. It's 4.6. So you see, like this one is 2.8 meters plus 1.86. So the total is 4.66, but not one continuous piece. It's 2 pieces. So we need to know that if we are picking a new pattern and potentially want to use this fabric. All right, I'm going to go back and delete these search criteria and go back to the grid view. So we are back to the top of our page just to go through the rest of it. So we had so far, right, suitable for lining with quantity meter, quantity notes, which we only use sometimes, but when we use it, it's really useful. The next thing is the care. So this is very easy, right? It's just dry clean only or washable, and what temperature. Do you want to steam it or iron it? What do you want to do with it, right? Like what is good for this fabric. So we're just going to put care and then do multiple select and start putting in our options. So wash, cold, warm, dry clean only, iron, and steam. And I like to change the colors for these ones just so they really stand out. So the wash and the cold, they're fine in blue. The warm, I want to make red. So I'm just going to click on the circle, make it red. And then the dry clean only, that's a big thing too. So I want to make it red so that it stands out to me more. And then the iron doesn't really matter because that's not like if you can iron it, you can steam it, doesn't matter. I just do those in the more mellow colors, but the warm for dry clean or the warm wash, that definitely is nice to make it stand out. And now these options become available. So for this one, let's say it's a cotton, so you can wash it in warm water. Obviously you would test your fabric as usual, but just we have it wash and then warm. And if you wanted, you could also put in dryer. I typically don't because I just know if it's warm, if I can wash it in warm water, then obviously I can also dry it in the dryer. If I can only wash it in cold water, just by looking at the fabric, I'm going to know if I can put it in the dryer or not. But you can put it in as an additional option there for the dryer as well. All right, next. What do I want to use it for? So this is a particularly useful column I found because even though we had those notes earlier about what is it suitable for, so maybe it's suitable for dresses and blouses like this one here, but I know for sure that I want to make a dress from it. actually this one, right? I want to make a dress from it. So I'm not going to put in all the other options that I could possibly use this fabric for. I'm just going to put in the exact thing that I want to use it for. So this, if you have a plan for it, or if you know roughly, even if not the exact pattern, then you can put in what you want to use it for. And again, you would make this a multiple select, so customize field type, multiple select, and then you would put in the different types of garments. So dress, blouse, top, skirt, pants, coat, jacket, jumpsuit, like whatever you usually make, you would just put in those options. If you make something like an apron or a tea towel, if you make household things like pillowcase, memory bear, that you want to use actually new fabrics for that, but you know, like whatever it is that you usually that you usually make, then you can put those types of options here, and then you save it, and then here it comes up. So let's say this pink cotton, I want to use it for a blouse, so there it is. Okay, our next column here says pattern, but we're going to skip this one for now because I've updated how I'm doing it for myself, and I've also updated, or I made the template for you guys accordingly with the new version. So this, I have here still some old information, but we can skip this for now because we're not using it. There will be another way to link it, and I'm going to show you that in 2 minutes. So we're going to come back to this over here. So right now, the next column is whether it was made or not. Okay, so again, customize field type, and it will be a yes or no question. Oops. So it's going to be a single select. So we go to our new build, click the plus sign, and then we'll do single select. The name of the field is made, and our options are yes or no, or yes but have more, and customize field type, and we're gonna recolor these. So yes, green, no, red. And most of the time you will have the no, because when you first start with your fabric collection, you buy a new fabric, you obviously haven't made anything with it yet, right? So it's going to be no first. If you made it and you used it all up, you're going to click yes. And this one is yes, but have more. It means that, yeah, you made something with it, but you have enough left over for something else to be made from that fabric also. So that's a really, really useful search, because sometimes you want to search for things. I'm going to go back to my gallery view here and then filter by made. And I'm going to say yes. Ta-da, all of the stuff that I've recently made since I started this system, right? But then I also want to see that, okay, what are some of the things that I made, but I also have more fabric, so I can use more of that. And then these are the things that I've used for projects, and also I have more of it, enough that I can use it for another project. So in this case, this one here, by the way, doesn't have an image of what I made, and that's only because I use this fabric as lining. So I just want to keep it here, not as the main image of the dress that I made with it, because you wouldn't see that from the picture anyway, because this was used as a lining. All right, so this one is a really useful search, and we've built it into here with these options. And then let's go to our next field. The next column in our grid view is thread number. Now this you don't have to do. I like to do it because I'm really anal about matching my thread color to my fabric. So I'm going to put the number of the thread there. And I don't do it ahead of time, but once I've made something, particularly if there is leftover fabric that I can use for other projects, then I don't have to match it again, because I'm just going to have the note there. So you see, like, for example, this one, yes, but have more, right? This is exactly one of those things that I already made. I have more fabric, and so next time, more fabric, and so next time I go and make something from this fabric, I'm just going to look for this color number in my thread collection, and it will be really easy. All right, and then notes, the next one. So this one, oh, sorry, let me put the thread number. We're going to put it here. And this will be a single line text. And that just means a short little piece of text. If you wanted to do longer text, which is going to be our notes, then you would do a long text. So yeah, here you see this notes. Sometimes there are things that I notice on a fabric, like let's say it has snags on it, or I have a particular plan for it, but I haven't picked the exact pattern yet. So I'm going to have the notes here, and I'm going to look at it before I go ahead and cut to know what information I thought of before. This one, I wanted to buy, I wanted to use this one for palazzo pants, but it might be too thin. I have to check it because it might not work for pants, right? Or like this is a really good piece of information to have sometimes, because like this one is not color fast. I saw it when I washed it. It was bleeding like crazy. Even when I was ironing it, it was bleeding. So that's why I put here all in caps, use pressed cloth, so that I'm not going to mess up my ironing board or my iron, right? So these are really, really useful notes. And most of the time you're not going to have anything, but when you do, it will be something that will help you. And you can also put in notes for the same way for when you've made something, like let's say you learned something, a new technique as you're sewing it, you might put a little reminder note for yourself of how to do this type of a closure or this type of a hem or something. You can note that there. So we're going to put in long text for our option of the type of field, and it's just going to be called notes. And so we're going to put in notes like, let's say, find a cool pattern for this fabric. Like you would put an actual note, right? But this is, and if you don't see the whole thing, by the way, you can always just go into that little arrow in the right corner after you tapped on it or clicked on it, and it will expand it and you can see the whole thing. Okay, the next one is the inspiration. Now this is an ambitious column for me. I haven't used it for anything yet. My initial plan was to put in images of things that inspire me that could be used for a particular fabric, with a particular fabric. Like if I find a cool picture on some e-commerce website or a fashion magazine or something, I can snap that and upload it here. Since then, I came to the realization that it's better to create an entire new table for that and link those records, because that way it will be easier to find. So this will make a whole lot more sense when I show you how we link together the records between fabrics and patterns. And then you would do the same thing for the inspo. I haven't done that for mine yet. It's a lot of input, so I'm just going to focus, or I have focused so far on the most important things, but this is something that you can do right away from the beginning if you want to. Now, the next one is used it up. That's a question, right? So that's just something that we talked about before, right? With the made question. Here, remember, we had these options of, yes, I made something from this fabric. No, I haven't made anything from this fabric. Or yes, I have, but I have more of this fabric. Now, this one that we're talking about here, to use it up, is basically the same question, but in a different way. It's just a checkbox. It's just to use it up. And that just helps me filter out things if I ever need to in the search, where it's in my collection, but I don't want to search. I don't want it to come up in the results if I don't have any serious yardage left, right? So that's something that you may or may not use. I find it pretty useful. Let me show you why I would want to have that. So let's see, we search for used it up, and then by default it's not checked. It's a checkbox type of field. It's not checked, so everything that I have some yardage of still, it's basically everything pretty much in my collection, is gonna show up. But if I completely used it up, it's gonna come up like this. And why is this good? Because this will show me that, oh yeah, I made this fabric, I made this dress, and I really like this dress, but what was that fabric again? I would love to make some more. I don't have any more of it, but look at that. I can just go and click on my link and buy that fabric again. So this makes it really, really easy. If you're thinking that, yeah, I made that dress and in your actual wardrobe, or I made that little outfit, I would love to have more of that fabric. This way you can find it super, super quick. So for this reason, I recommend that you do use this one, the used it up question. And so the way to do that is you put here, used it up. And then you're going to use the checkbox option for this field type. There we go. Create field. And so here now you will have the option. And we are using this for another question also in the fabric collection one. You'll see when you can narrow down my favorites. That's a really cool thing. And I'm using this checkbox type of field for that. That makes it easy to narrow down your next round of projects to what patterns you want to buy fabrics for in your, say, in the next month. Okay, next. We're almost done. So here is where I started linking the patterns to the other fields. So commercial patterns, we're going to skip that one. This is just a distinction for me between self-drafted patterns and patterns that I bought from McCall's or Vogue or whatever. This was the initial plan anyway when I created this table. But I've since realized that I'm really only buying border patterns since I've switched over to using a projector. Previously, I bought a lot from the big four, and so that would have been, the Vogue, Simplicity, McCall's. Those were here, or those would have been here, but they're all paper patterns, and I don't know if I'm going to digitize them at some point. But for right now, they're just like in my physical stash. I'm not using them. So really my PDF patterns are all border patterns. So that's why I have a separate name here. Now for you, if you're using Alien Mac or Peony patterns or whatever projector pattern companies from the indie pattern companies, then you would name your column here, your last field. You would name it like just simply patterns, for example. It doesn't have to be the name because you can just search by the name of the pattern, right? So you don't have to break it down by company. But if you wanted to, you could. So let's do an example here. So let's say multiple select type of a field. And then we just say pattern company. And then for the options, I'm going to say, well, let's do Burda because we like them. Let's do Alien Mac. Let's do Peony patterns. Let's do patterns for pirates. And so on. Like you would put in whatever you typically use, right? And again, it's going to be a bunch of these options are going to be there in the mood patterns also. They're pretty good. I heard. I haven't used them. You're going to have these as options already here in your template, and you can also add some of your own. So again, if you wanted to delete some, because let's say you never buy Burda, what you would do in your own copy from the template, you would create your own copy. You would just go and X this out, and you're not going to have that as an option anymore. I mean, if you want it, you can have it. If you don't want it, you don't have it. You don't have to. And then you can add in additional options based on your own use case of what kind of companies you buy from. And then here you can put a pattern name. And that, I'm going to say name instead of number because it really depends on the company. Like some companies will name their patterns with words and other will name them with serial numbers. Burda names them by, between 101 and 135 in every single issue, and then those numbers repeat, but then you add the month and the name of the magazine. So every single company pretty much has their own naming convention. So if you only use patterns that have numbers, then use that. Like the big four, for example, right? They have just like M345 or whatever, they would have stuff like that. But if they have names, then this will be a better descriptor. And then again, you would do multiple select. I'm sorry, not multiple select. I was wrong. This will be linked to another record. And so here, you will not have anything initially in yours. For me, I have all these different options. And you know where this came from? Look here on the purple last row. All of these are my tables. So inside the base that we are in right now, it will give you the option to link to any other table that you have inside the same base, and then you link to those records. So in this case, I'm going to pick Burda patterns because I know that that's where my patterns are, right? For you, you would have it with whatever you name your pattern collection table. Okay? And then create field. And then here you can choose what you actually want to use as lookup fields. We can skip this for now. And so let's show an example of how we would use it, okay? So for pattern company, okay, we don't have Borda. I'm just going to put Borda for now because that's what I have. And then for the pattern name, this, remember, this is a link to another record, is the field type. So now I can go and pull up, and now it pulls all of my Borda patterns here. And so I can just link any one of them. Now it's 800 patterns, so I'm not going to scroll through all of them to find it. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open in my other tab here. I'm going to go to the Borda patterns in the gallery view and delete these filters. So I have all of my patterns here, right? So let's say I just want to quickly pick something for that particular pink fabric, that cotton fabric, remember, that we are doing the input for right now. So let's say I want to use that pink fabric for this kind of a blouse. This will be perfect, right? So this is the one that we are talking about. And oops. And this pattern will be perfect for that. So what we're going to do is look at the name of the pattern, which is the first field, copy it, Command C or Control C on a PC. And then you go back to your table here, and this is where we were, right? The pattern name, we already picked this as a link record. You click on the plus sign and then find existing record. You paste that number there and boom, there it is. And so now what happened, you filled out the whole information. And I know it was very long, but we are creating the table as we are filling it in for the first record. So the rest of it will go way faster, okay? And so what happens now is you have this information about this piece of fabric. And let's say I want to create the gallery view. By the way, this is how you create it. You go here in the lower left-hand corner, gallery, and you just click the plus sign and create new view. Ta-da. And then there it is. The other two are empty here because we started filling out information here, but like there is no actual information. It's just the rows, number 2 and 3. So that's why there are two other options that are blank here. But now let's say we pulled up this one. And so, okay, I bought this fabric. What was the pattern again that I wanted to use it for? Here it is. And I open it. Watch this. I click on it. And you see this little white line? It connects it. Behind it, you can see where it says Borda Patterns. It connects it to my table that has all the patterns where it's pulling the records from. Does that make sense? And then vice versa, if I were to go into that pattern table and pull that record, it shows which fabric is assigned to that particular pattern. And so this is great for planning as well as for keeping track of past projects, because let's say you remember a fabric that or a pattern that you made at some point, you have this dress or you made something for your kids, and oh yeah, which pattern was that again? Well, it's going to be super easy to find because you can just go into your your fabric stash here. Where is it? Fabrics, my real fabric thing, right? And I'm gonna, let's say I want to see which pattern did I use. I'm gonna undo this one. I want to manually look for something, okay? But you could do it with the search function like how we discussed before, right? So let's say I picked this one, and which pattern did I use for this? I don't remember. Well, I click on it, and now, because it's already been linked to my Borda Patterns table, I can just click on it and there it is. And I have all the information, including the actual pattern files, the quantity that I'll need for it, as well as any other projects that I've made using this pattern. So this linking works both ways, and it shows you multiple records because it allows you to link any, I'm sure there's some limit, but like in theory, unlimited records of when I use the same pattern for other projects. So this one is already open under this here because that's what we started with. But this one, I can open it and see what I've made, right? And it has all the information. And again, it has the pattern information, which is open already, like right under this window. or I can look at this one, like there's another version of it. So it's going to really help you because you can just search by, say, made, right? Remember the question in your fabric stash that did I make this already? And then that way you can quickly visually see, like, let's say I can search for where the checkbox would be checked for made, and then let's say it has to be a blouse or it has to be a skirt. And so all of those that you have made that are skirts will come up, and then you click on it, and then you can, if you linked it to your pattern, it's going to show you which pattern it was, and it pulls up all that information. So you can use it from here, or you can go and copy this and then go to your patterns table, which in my case is the Borda patterns table, and then very simply click on the search sign and then put in that name, and here it highlights this one, right? That's the one. It comes up with all the similar ones. This is specific for the Borda because they have pretty much the same numbers all the time and the same month and year for the issue of the magazine. So that will come up repetitively, but it will highlight with a border the one that you actually need, so you'll see it. All right, now let's go over to the patterns section.